Welcome into the CBS News Texas Stream, everyone. Ken Molestina, just a little bit past 6 o'clock here on this Thursday as we continue to cover some major breaking news as it involves the redistricting maps here in the state of Texas. Major political news. The Supreme Court of the United States has just announced that the maps are to stay, saying that Texas is correct in the redistricting efforts that took place to gain the Republican Party 5 more seats in Congress as a result of the redistricting that took place here in Texas. Joining me now to talk more about this, of course, is Jack Fink, our political expert and reporter. Jack, you've been following this since the very beginning, not just today. Yeah. This obviously dropped about an hour ago now, is when you just first heard about it. So let's set this up from the beginning, because we're going to talk about reaction and all kinds of stuff here in a second. But what does this now mean for Texas? Okay,
so this is a very big victory for Texas Republicans, because what this does now is it definitely says the 2025 maps that were drawn back in August and approved by Texas Republicans are in place. And these 2025 maps were designed to give Texas Republicans 5 more seats at the Democrats' expense in the state of Texas for next year's midterm elections in 2026. And so the justices basically were acting upon Justice Alito's administrative stay, which was from back in November 21st.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, it's interesting because we've been waiting a long time, relatively speaking, for this order to come out, because on December 8th, on Monday, is the filing deadline.
That's the deadline.
Right, for all the Texas candidates to file for the March 3rd primary. So timing is of the essence here. And one of the things that a majority of the court, 6-3, came out and said was timing was a problem for the lower court, because the lower court made its decision, you know, after it was November 18th when they came out. This was 10 days after the campaign filing period started. And the Supreme Court has a rule that the courts cannot interfere with an election very close to an election.
Well, and that's a big problem, and folks even here locally had been talking about that because, as you know, the efforts for this midterm election, it's in full swing at this point.
Well, it's in full swing to the extent that candidates have already started filing their paperwork.
Correct. Right.
And they want to know exactly where are they supposed to run? Are they supposed to run under the 2025 maps, or are they supposed to run under the existing 2021 map? Now, let me read you something.
Yeah, please do, because you have the decision.
Yeah, I have the decision. And so this actual paragraph, this couple sentences stands out to me. It says, the district court, and we're talking about the lower court's ruling. This was the 3-judge panel in El Paso. And so this is when they refer to the district court, it's this 3-judge panel. It says, the district court violated that rule here, the timing issue. The district court improperly inserted itself into an active primary campaign, causing much confusion and upsetting the delicate federal-state balance in elections. So, and that's one of the main reasons why they granted Texas their appeal to stay the lower court's ruling. So that's why the 2025 maps are in place. Another thing that I thought sticks out here is, you know, the Democrats and LULAC and the NAACP had challenged Texas. They took Texas to court because they said the state illegally, the Texas Republicans, illegally racially gerrymandered the district.
That's been their claim all along.
That's been their claim all along.
Yeah.
And basically what the court is saying here is that the lower court ruling, which found in favor of the Democrats' claim, was wrong. And they say that, I'm trying to find it here, they said that the district court failed to honor the presumption of legislative good faith by constructing ambiguous, direct, and circumstantial evidence against the legislature. So in other words, what that means is the legislature said, look, we did not consider race at all. The Republicans said from the beginning, we did not consider race in all this at all. This was pure partisan gain. But what the lower court decided, the majority on the lower court said, is they looked at a letter from the U.S. Justice Department to Governor Abbott in July, which said that you have 4 coalition districts, including the 33rd here in North Texas, which is represented by Mark Vesey.
Mark Vesey, yeah.
and they said those coalition districts are illegal. And so that's what they're referring to here, because the NAACP and LULAC and the Democrats all pointed to that letter saying that, aha, see, they were trying to use race here.
Right.
But what happened was, when I talked to Republicans and asked them about that, it's like, we didn't consider that. We only considered a pure partisan gain here.
The 5 seats,
the 5 seats.
Yeah, right.
We didn't look at it. Now, obviously, Democrats are going to disagree with this ruling. And then there's one other thing that I thought was interesting here, and Justice Alito brought this up in his concurring opinion. And he said what happened was the judges, the lower court ruling, instead of saying, okay, we're going to have, there's an alternative map, they just went back to the 2021 map, the map that we're currently under. But he said that really was wrong. He said, the respondents, these are the plaintiffs, experts, could have easily produced an alternative map if that were possible. They did not, giving rise to a strong inference that the state's map was indeed based on partisanship, not race.
Not race, yeah.
So I think those are my 3 takeaways based on what was said in the ruling. Of course, the 3 liberal justices.
In El Paso, probably.
Well, the 3 liberal justices on the Supreme Court.
Oh, okay.
They had a 17-page dissent, and they obviously disagreed with the 6
Sure.
Well, 6 conservatives on the court.
On the court. I want to get to some of the reaction that's pouring in now.
Yeah.
If we can here. Let's see here. Do we have Governor Greg Abbott's? Because Governor Abbott has recently, I think, put out some information. I want to read this to you here. He says, quote, and this is just on the heels of this coming out, we won, exclamation point. So very emphatically, he's saying, we won. Texas is officially and legally more red. The U.S. Supreme Court has restored the redistricting maps passed by Texas that were based on, and that just went away. But he goes on to say, the new congressional districts better align our representation in Washington, D.C. with the values of our state. This is a victory for Texas voters, for common sense, and for the U.S. Constitution. And that dropped just a little bit ago before we began the stream here. To that point, Dan Patrick also saying on Twitter, great news to hear the U.S. Supreme Court made the right decision on the 2025 Texas congressional map. We knew all along that we did the right thing. It is going to be great for Texas and America to send 5 new Republicans to Congress. I'm going to continue here because we do have a lot, Jack, here. Ken Paxton chiming in on this, a formal news release out of his office, saying, quote, and I'll just read a part of it because it is long. In the face of Democrats' attempts to abuse the judicial system to steal the U.S. House, this is Paxton talking, I have defended Texas' fundamental right to draw a map that ensures we are represented by Republicans. The big, beautiful map will be in effect for 2026. The words of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. I want to get to the other side of things now because, as you would imagine, this is the Texas House Democratic Caucus, and Representative Gene Wu, who, if you've been following this all along, you know that he was the person that Republican leadership in the state blamed for starting the walkout down in Austin, from the very beginning to avoid this vote when it was happening here at the state level. But Representative Gene Wu from down in the Houston area saying the Supreme Court failed Texas voters today, and they failed American democracy. This is what the end of the Voting Rights Act looks like. Courts that won't protect minority communities, even when the evidence is staring them in the face. Again, he's making reference to what you were talking about, the Democrats in the state always claiming that this was a racially gerrymandered effort. And the last one here, Jack, and then we'll talk, because there's so much to talk about here. This is Ann Johnson out of Houston also chiming in on this. She also played a key role in all of this. The same thing. The Supreme Court failed this country, she says. A bipartisan panel led by a Trump-appointed federal judge found substantial evidence that Texas Republicans racially gerrymandered the state's congressional maps, a finding rooted in clear precedent, hours of testimony. Instead of upholding that ruling, she says, the Supreme Court abandoned its duty to the Constitution, choosing loyalty to Trump in the same way that Texas Republicans have. We expected them to say that. Yes, of course. And we do have one other from the Texas House Democratic Caucus, the vice chair, the state representative, Mihaela Pisa of Dallas, and she says, the Supreme Court sided with political power over voting rights today, and that should alarm every Texan, no matter your party. Now,
I would imagine that any Republican who just looked at her statement is going to say, yes, partisan power. That's what the Supreme Court is saying. Partisanship is allowed under this. It's the racial gerrymandering that is against the law, the Voting Rights Act. And what I think is really interesting is, Ken, this is coming at a time where the Supreme Court is reviewing cases on this very subject, on redistricting, in Louisiana
States, yeah.
and some other states as well. So they actually heard it last session, and then they decided to rehear it in the fall. So this is likely going to come up in the spring or in June.
Absolutely it will.
Right. So I think Texas is a little part of all of this.
Yep.
And of course, to your point, you know, this is going to set off now.
Yeah.
Because the filing deadline is Monday, December 8th. And we know that a lot of Democrats have been really waiting, especially here in North Texas, because we have 3 congressional districts right now that are served by Democrats. And so they haven't filed. None of the members, Julie Johnson, I think she's in Texas 32, which is going to be a Republican district under the 2025 map. So she has said under the 2025 map, she would run in the 33rd congressional district. And that is now consolidated. It's all in Dallas County. Before, under the existing map we're under right now, it's in Dallas and Tarrant County.
Piece of Tarrant, right, where Mark D.C.
Well, it's a lot of Tarrant.
Yeah.
But under 33, under the new maps, in 2025, it's going to be only in Dallas County. And then in Texas 30, this is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's district. She, of course, is considering a run for the U.S. Senate. That all looks all but likely now, because she was drawn out of her district in the 30th.
Right.
And so in the new maps, under the new maps, her home was in Texas in the 33rd congressional district. So before she decided she was likely going to go run for U.S. Senate, she was trying to figure out if she was going to run in the 30th or in the 33rd under the 2025 map. So what's happening now is, and we broke the story yesterday, as far as Congressman Vesey is likely to run in the new Texas 30, which includes parts of Tarrant County and Dallas County. And Julie Johnson will run in the 33rd congressional district. And I'm waiting to see, I sent a text and I haven't heard back.
Yeah, if that pops, let us know.
Yeah, but I'm waiting to find out if Domingo Garcia, the former LULAC national president and Dallas City Council member and Dallas State representative, I'm waiting to see if he is going to run for the 33rd.
I think there was a communication that he put out, because that was one that sort of joined in and made some noise later on, saying if the map stayed the same, he would be running.
Yeah.
If not, he wouldn't. And obviously, you know, we know how this is going to shape now. It would revert back. All right, we've talked a lot about you know, some of the implications that it means for the would-be candidates now. Jack, so let's talk about nationally what all of this means.
Yeah.
California's looking at this. Okay.
Well, they already voted.
Gavin Newsom, they voted. The voters said, let's do it, right?
Right. So,
and North Carolina as well?
North Carolina, I think Indiana maybe was in the process.
Yeah.
Florida now said, the governor DeSantis said the other day, they're going to do it.
Yeah. Wondering what kind of precedent, though, now this decision that you have in your hand sets for those states moving forward?
Well, we know that mid-decade redistricting is legal. I mean, that's why it's happening. And so what I find very interesting, you know, we didn't talk about the Republicans in the new District 32, which stretches from Dallas out to East Texas. And there have been a lot of interesting developments in the last couple of days, because by my count, there are 5 people who filed their paperwork or have expressed an interest to run in this newly created Republican district. And so one of the interesting things the last couple of days is a California congressman, Darrell Issa, who he says was drawn out of his district in San Diego under the California redistricting, floated the idea that, hey, maybe I'll run in this new Texas 32. So yesterday he met with President Trump in the Oval Office, I guess. Yeah. And the president, I'm told, I was reading today actually, said, you run in California and don't worry about Texas.
Yeah.
And so, because that set off a whole firestorm of comments in Texas about we don't need a California guy coming to Texas.
Right. I mean, we've heard that kind of rhetoric before a lot here in Texas. And by the way, we should let folks know that we're also still waiting. At some point, we are expecting that the president will put out a statement as well. I'm sure he's got a lot to say about this. We're talking about President Donald Trump as well. But when we talk about these implications, you know, of what this does sort of nationwide, Jack, and what, by the way, what was just you got something hot there?
Hot off the press.
Yeah, what do you got?
One of our producers just handed me, this is from the Texas Democratic Party.
Okay.
And it says, quote, when Donald Trump sends a ruling to his Supreme Court, they usually rule in his favor. Texas Democrats have already stepped up to run in these newly drawn districts, and they haven't changed their minds. We still believe that voters should pick their politicians. Politicians don't get to pick their voters. Texas Democrats are going to organize and fight like hell to keep this principle and fight this disastrous agenda. You know, everybody gerrymanders. Democrats do it in blue states, Republicans do it in red states, and that's just the way it is, and whether people like it or not. And the Supreme Court is basically saying if it's for partisanship, that's okay. It's parties in power trying to stay in power. And I remember I was interviewing for the late Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson out of Dallas, and we were talking about redistricting years ago, obviously. And she said to me, she's like, you know, when we were in power, we did it too.
Yeah.
And so this is what the parties do. People, obviously, a lot of people don't like it. You know, they don't like the whole party structure. That's why we're seeing more people become independents.
Sure.
But here we are.
All right. I want to pick up where we left off before you got that hot off the press note there. Because nationally, we know that all eyes are on Texas right now. This is sort of a little experiment that's happening here that has major implications for other states, for folks across the country, namely California, as we were mentioning. But I'm wondering, you know, how this continues to play out here, because again, you know, we're so close to the deadline now, you know, and then, you know, the midterm votes, that's going to come up before you know it. You think they're going to continue to keep fighting this, or I mean,
there's no fight. There's nothing left.
There's nothing left.
This is it. This is it. Yeah. So what's going to happen now?
What the court says is what's going to stay as we move forward.
It's done. So the 2025 maps stay in place, and so I'm sure, you know, the Democrats may not be happy about this. We know they're not happy about this, but at least now there's certainty about where they are going to file. And so, you know, in the 30th, the 32nd, 33rd, you know, congressional districts, you know, the problem here in North Texas, and there are other parts of the state, you know, that are having this issue, Democrats are having this issue, at least here, what we had was musical chairs, because you had 3 Democratic districts now going to go down to 2. And with Congresswoman Crockett, looks like she's going to run for U.S. Senate, then the incumbents, Julie Johnson says she's running in 33, Mark Vesey is likely to run in 30, then the incumbents have a place to run. That's certainly not the case in other parts of the state. I do want to bring up one other issue. And that is that these 5 congressional districts, these pickups for Republicans, at least, I don't know if they're going to be all 5. I don't know if they're going to get all 5. 32, certainly they're going to get up in North Texas, because it stretches out to East Texas, okay? That's definitely going to be a Republican majority. What I'm actually very interested in is focusing on South Texas, because, and if you look, let me just get up over here for a minute.
Can we see that?
So in South Texas right now.
Let's see if maybe I get out of the way too, so you can get a better shot.
So in South Texas right now, you have, you know, in 28th congressional district is Henry Cuellar, right? And Henry Cuellar was just pardoned by President Trump yesterday. And he said, and he's filed his paperwork as a Democrat, he says he's not changing. But he's very popular in that area, even under indictment, he's very popular. So is that really going to become a Republican pickup? I'm not so sure.
And that's one of the ones that you're putting a question mark on.
Definitely, yeah. Okay. I don't know that the Republicans are going to pick that up. And then there's the 34th Congressional District. Vicente Gonzalez holds that seat right now, South Texas. Republicans really did try to pick that up before. They did for a previous amount, but then under the 2021 map, they lost it. But they may pick that up. And the 15th Congressional District is down here. That is a Republican seat. They're likely to retain that. And then there was another Republican pickup, the 35th Congressional District, I believe. They will get that. But South Texas is still that 28th Congressional District by Henry Cuellar. That's my question mark. That's my question.
You know, it's interesting you talk about South Texas, because even in the reporting that we've done when it comes to immigration and some of the politics down there, we saw how not just South Texas, but the entire border, there were a lot of surprises during the primary election that flipped red.
The main argument for Republicans to do all this was that when you go county by county along the border, I can't remember the exact amount, but
1,300 square miles.
But there are a lot of counties, right?
Sure.
And so President Trump won a majority of these counties from here all the way up, okay? And so the Republicans' whole basis for this, when they say this, they say, look, President Trump won. If you look at the border communities, at least on the presidential vote, they're Republican. And now what Democrats are saying is, they don't think the same thing would happen because people are still very concerned about the economy, affordability, this issue that we keep hearing about. And, you know, the Republicans are going to have a year until the midterm election to try to show people that, hey, the economy isn't as bad as you say it is. You know, they want to show that, you know, prices are coming down, gas prices are below $3, all that. They're going to try to make those points. But the Democrats are saying, look, the people who voted for President Trump along the border, they're not feeling President Trump right now all that much. So we'll have to see.
And we've heard that recently, obviously, with the cost of living, the biggest.
Well, that's why it's a big issue. That's why it's a big issue, is because, you know, people, you know, they're not happy because things in the grocery store still cost more. Prices don't go down. Inflation goes down. Prices, for the most part, do not. And so that's what people are.
Well, Jack, this is all fascinating. The kind of implications, we can talk about this all night, really. But I know that we've got a newscast coming up here at 7 o'clock in about 30 minutes.
I'll see you for.
Which you will be on. You didn't plan to be.
I was fighting traffic to get back.
Made a hard U-turn to come right back to us.
That's
and I'm sure we'll have a whole lot more of a reaction, as well as the implication, and just more of Jack Fink just educating us all, you know, on how all this is going to play out. Because, again, I think the biggest thing that we're going to see here is not just sort of this fighting that's going to continue, which you said there's no sense in doing it at this point, that the Supreme Court has said it, but also how other states are going to respond to this. Yes, and we'll see what the other states do. I don't necessarily believe that this case is over yet. I think the court is still going to consider it. They may send it back to the lower court to figure out. That's one of the things that I need to find out. Talk to lawyers, et cetera, involved in this case. Okay. Jack, again, we could talk all night, but I'm not going to do that. Well, we are at 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, we're going to talk some more, right? We're going to talk some more and give it another shot. But again, we're going to have a whole lot more on this major breaking news coming up here on CBS News Texas at 7 o'clock. That's over on TXA, and obviously over back on Channel 11 at 10 o'clock tonight. Jack Fink going to hang out, doing a double duty tonight. That's okay. Helping us out with all this breaking news. And of course, you can rejoin us right here on this stream at 7 o'clock as we go live with much more on this breaking news. Again, if you're just joining us, the Supreme Court saying that the new congressional maps drawn here in 2025 in Texas can and will stay. We'll have a whole lot more straight ahead here on CBS News Texas. Thanks for joining us.